think you've missed the train of life? You haven't. You're just standing at a new station, finally wise enough to board the right one. It's too late is a lie. Some people feel like they walked into their own life too late, like they missed the first episode of the show, don't know who's who, and the main character already left the scene. Have you ever felt that way? The feeling of "I'm too late" is one of the brain's cruelest illusions. It doesn't just slow you down, it shames you, makes you shrink, and convinces you to stay quiet in a room where you belong. Here's the twist. There's no such thing as on time. The idea of being late is a social invention built by clocks, societal pressure, and 19-year-olds on TikTok who just bought their second house. We're haunted by imaginary deadlines. Career by 25, family by 30, success by 40. Who decided this? A bunch of people who forgot that humans aren't factory-built to grow on the same schedule. Truth is, life isn't a relay race. There's no baton to pass, no finish line to cross together. Growth doesn't follow one time zone. Need proof? Vera Wang designed her first wedding dress at 40. Samuel L. Jackson landed his breakout role at 46. Colonel Sanders launched KFC at 65. And you think you're late? Behavioral science says when people believe they're too late, they stop trying. Not because they can't, but because they've already benched themselves. Psychologists call it learned helplessness. It's when hearing "you're too late" enough times makes you believe it, and that belief kills action. But here's the kicker. Believing something doesn't make it true. You're not late. You're just now experienced enough to start. Wiser. Something your younger self didn't have. Clarity, resilience, and scars that teach. So next time you or anyone else says, "It's too late to start now," respond with this. Late according to who? Whose timeline? And who made them the authority on your life? Because let's face it, too late is just a lie that got repeated too often. Your brain hates starting, but loves progress. Imagine sitting in front of a blank page, no instructions, no guide, just the ticking clock in your head screaming, "Do something. Hurry, you're late." That's not laziness. That's fear of starting. Neuroscience shows that the human brain hates uncertainty. When you face an undefined task with no immediate reward, your prefrontal cortex, the decision-making center, goes into overdrive. It panics. Translation? Your brain isn't lazy, it's just overwhelmed by the fog of the unknown. This is why you can scroll TikTok for 2 hours without breaking a sweat, but feel completely drained after 10 minutes of trying to write a life plan. One is clear and easy, the other? A mental swamp with zero clarity. To make things worse, your brain is designed to conserve energy. Starting something new is energy intensive. It means building new neural pathways, stepping outside the comfort zone, and accepting that early stage awkwardness that "I'm a total beginner" feeling nobody enjoys. Here's the twist. Once you start even just a little, your brain releases dopamine. That's the reward chemical. It kicks in when you write one sentence, read 2 pages, work out for 5 minutes. Just a hint of progress is enough to make your brain feel good and want more. Your brain doesn't crave achievement. It craves momentum. So instead of asking, "How do I finish this massive project?" ask, "How do I trick my brain into feeling movement?" The answer is almost embarrassingly simple. Write 1 line. Walk for 1 minute. Sit at your desk for 30 seconds. This is called activation energy, the amount of effort it takes to just get started. And if you lower it enough, Your brain will jump in before it has time to argue. You're not lazy. You're not late. You just need a push so tiny your brain doesn't even notice that. So next time you feel like starting is too hard, remember, starting doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be small enough to slip past your brain's alarm system. Basically, your nervous system is just hitting the snooze button on your life. Comparing your life is a slow suicide. There's a dangerous habit almost all of us have, and ironically, we call it inspiration. One scroll on social media. She lost 30 pounds. He bought a second house. Someone else started their own company, and you're still trying to reset your old Gmail password, wondering how life turned into this mess. The truth is, your life isn't actually bad. You're just comparing it to someone else's highlight reel. Psychologists call this social comparison theory. Our brains are wired to judge ourselves based on what we see in others. The problem? We never see the full picture. You see the dreamy wedding photos, but not the nightly arguments over dishes. You see the flashy startup pitch, but not the founder crying at 2 a.m. You're comparing your rough draft to someone else's final edit. And of course you feel behind. In fact, a study from the University of Pittsburgh shows that the more time you spend on social media, the higher your risk of depression and anxiety, especially if you're prone to constant self-comparison. Might argue, but comparing gives me motivation. Sounds noble. But here's the trap. If your drive comes from feeling not good enough, no amount of success will ever feel like enough. You'll chase endlessly, criticize yourself ruthlessly, and never feel satisfied. That's not ambition, it's self-punishment. Instead of asking, why can they do it and I can't? Try asking, how would I live if I didn't need to post about it? Because once you stop looking sideways, you finally see where you actually stand and what you really need. Truth is, comparison won't kill you quickly. It just drips poison into your sleep every night. Failure memories make you afraid to try again. When was the last time you failed? No need for details, just one moment you still cringe about every time it crosses your mind. Your brain remembers. And unfortunately, it doesn't forget as quickly as you'd like. Neuroscience shows that the hippocampus and amygdala, the parts of the brain responsible for memory and emotional response, don't just record what happened. They store the exact feelings of shame, embarrassment, and emotional pain tied to it. So when a new opportunity shows up, no matter how small, your brain doesn't say, "Cool, let's go." It whispers, "Remember last time? What if it hurts?" Again, that's what psychologists call emotional residue. And the older we get, the more of it we carry. You're not avoiding new things because you're lazy. You're avoiding them because you've been hurt for being brave. Worse, you might start defending that avoidance with logic. I'm just being realistic. I've already tried. I'm too old for this dream stuff. But those aren't wise thoughts. They're defense mechanisms. They're fear dressed up as common sense. The real issue? You're letting your memories lead, instead of letting your lessons lead. It's like refusing to drive again because of a past crash, ignoring the fact that now you've got better maps, stronger skills, and a seatbelt that works. Instead of saying, "I already tried and failed. Try this. I tried with the old version of me, and I'm not that person anymore." The truth is, every time you rise after a failure, you become a little less naive and a whole lot wiser. And that wisdom? That's your edge. If you sat down and listed everything you learned from that fall, you'd see something powerful. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. Failure wasn't trying to end you. It was just checking to see if you took notes. You're not starting from zero. Sound familiar? I have to start all over again. That phrase plays in your head like a sad background track every time you're about to try something new. It makes everything feel heavier, like you're being dragged back to square one. But here's the truth. You're not starting over. You're starting again with everything you've already lived. Think about it. You've got skills younger people haven't even heard of. You've made mistakes and survived them. You know the kind of people you don't want to work with. You know which goals drain you, and which dreams kept you up at night for all the wrong reasons. That's not wasted time. That's valuable data. Psychologists call this a mature mindset, the ability to make decisions based on real-life experience, not guesswork or blind optimism. In other words, you're no longer doing things just to see what happens. You're doing them to go where you actually want to be. Now imagine going back to age 25, but with the mind and heart you have right now. You wouldn't waste time on nonsense. You'd be more selective, more focused, and honestly, you'd be a lot kinder to yourself. The good news is you don't have to go back. You're already there. Right now you don't need youth. You just need to recognize the wisdom of your experience. So don't say, I'm starting over from scratch. Say, I'm starting over from wisdom. You're not a beginner. You're more like a climber switching trails with old maps, old scars, and a much clearer sense of which mountains are worth climbing and which cliffs to avoid. Experience doesn't slow you down. It just makes you pick your battles better. Starting at this age comes with a superpower. Clarity. Here's what no one tells you when you're young. The older you get, the more clearly you see what's not worth your energy. Youth is chaos. You try everything, believe anything, and crash hard when things don't go your way. But after a few decades, you start thinking, yeah, that's just not for me. And that feeling? That's freedom. Behavioral scientists call this emotional filtering, your mature brain's ability to tune out emotional noise and focus on what really matters. It doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're less foolish. You're no longer dazzled by shiny goals. You're not trying to prove something to everyone. You've outgrown the need to work yourself to death just to buy stuff you don't need, to impress people you don't even like. That's a bad deal, and now you see it. And that clarity? It's a superpower young people just don't have. You know your limits, not to give up, but to zero in. You know what makes you feel alive and what's just noise. Picture standing at the edge of a forest. When you're young, you run wild, trying every trail. But now, you've got a compass. You know where you're headed. You don't need to crawl through every thorn bush to learn. They're just thorns. Starting over at 30, 40, 50, or 60 isn't a curse. It's the first time you're walking forward without dragging along ego, expectations, or someone else's map. You don't have to be the best. You just have to be clear on who you are. Clarity doesn't make the journey easier. But at least this time, you won't get lost on someone else's road. Your timeline was never meant to match theirs. Imagine if apples judged themselves by how fast oranges ripen. Ridiculous, right? Yet that's exactly what we do when we compare our lives to others. Maybe you think you're behind. Maybe you scroll through social media and feel like everyone's building empires while you're just trying to hold it together. But let me remind you, comparison is a timeline thief. Psychologists call it social comparison theory. Your brain is wired to constantly check where you stand. But here's the trick. It doesn't compare fairly. It sees their highlight reel versus your behind-the-scenes mess. Truth is, there's no universal clock. Colonel Sanders launched KFC at 65. Vera Wang entered fashion at 40. Ray Kroc joined McDonald's at 52. So what if your story doesn't start with a bang in your 20s? Some lives are meant to simmer before they boil. And maybe that quiet season you hate? That's the foundation no one claps for, but everything depends on. The idea that you should be farther by now? That's borrowed shame from someone else's pace. Forget the pressure to meet fake deadlines. Forget the race you were never built for. You're not running late, you're just on a custom timeline. If life were a playlist, some people get their hit song in the intro. Others, they're saving it for the chorus. And you? Maybe yours is the kind people remember because it arrived when no one expected. Let go of the timer and start living like your moment hasn't passed. It's just not here. Yet. You're not too late. You're finally ready. What if you're not behind? What if this moment right now isn't your delay, but your arrival? There's a strange freedom that comes when life knocks you down a few times. You stop chasing trends. You stop begging for approval. And for the first time, you listen to yourself. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth. It's when people, after a crisis or failure, come back stronger, clearer, more purposeful. Not in spite of the setback, but because of it. You've been through some things. You're not wide-eyed anymore. You've learned how to spot fake friends, false starts, and empty wins. And now, you're more dangerous than ever because you've got wisdom. Starting over at this stage isn't weakness. It's a power move. You're no longer guessing who you are. You know, and that kind of clarity? That's rare. Let others sprint in circles. You're planting roots. Let them panic about being late. You're just now in alignment with who you were meant to be. The comeback isn't a return to who you were. It's a leap into who you've finally become. And that version of you isn't chasing timelines. They're building a life that's actually yours.